Hello and welcome. This is Beverly Fells Jones, the Silver Fox of Consciousness, and I hope your day is fantastic. Things are going well for you, and that you are finding 2021, what do I want to say, is going better than 2020. I wish you very good health. And I want you to think about being healthy and wealthy. But I really want you to think about being healthy and think of yourself as being healthy no matter what condition you're in, no matter what aches and pains and things that you may have. Because until you believe yourself to be well, until you believe yourself to be in good shape, you will not allow your subconscious to take over to help you do the things that are necessary to bring you into good health. We have been given the ability to heal ourselves. When you cut yourself, your body heals that cut. And if my body didn't heal all my cuts, I'd have cuts all over the place. Paper cuts, knife cuts, stumbling, all those kinds of things. We have a magnificent, absolutely magnificent body. And so know and understand that when you give your body what it needs, your body will give you what you need. Many times I have books. I've got books, and I've got more books, and I've got books that I haven't read, and I've got studying books for what I teach you, and even more that I've bought and haven't read. I've got fiction and nonfiction and cooking books and all kinds of things in order for me to learn. And in the middle of my journey several years ago, I was introduced to a particular writer. And a friend of mine told me about this writer because of the fact that I was searching the scriptures to see exactly if these things that I was learning from these New Age people was really true. I've told you that before when I wrote Christianity, the Law of Attraction, and the One Command, that I was looking to see what was true. And as a Christian at that point, could I do what I was dabbling in? And it came to be true. But this person introduced me to the wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. Scovel, Scovel, and Shinn, Shinn. And I wound up, I don't remember whether I was at Half Price Books or I found this on Amazon, but it's a used book. And it is called, The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn, 4 complete books. The one book that I said that I want my kids to read, my grandkids to read, I'm going to get, copies for them, is The Game of Life. When I read that, I went, oh, if I had read this when I was a teenager, it might not have meant very much, but if my mother had given it to me and said, every January I want you to read this book, because it's not that big. And maybe we read it together every January, it would have made a difference in my life. I lived a really good life in my younger years. I was successful in business and so on. So that's not it, but it's the way you look at life and the decisions that you made. So in the book, as I do often when I'm ready to do a recording, I kind of go into meditation and ask for direction. And so in this book, there is a story. There's quite a few stories in this book. And, she's got what I want to say, lots of tales. So it's in the section that's the secret of success. And it's really funny when I came to it, it was like, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. No, this is it. That you really aren't telling me this. And in reality, yes, she was. So in the section that's the secret door to success, she has a story in there called The Inner Meaning of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The inner meaning of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I thought about that and I said, this is interesting. However, I chose not to read it until now because I want to read it to you and share with you my first impressions as I read this. No, I hadn't read this section before, and so let's learn together the inner meaning of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by Florence Scovel Shinn. I have been asked to give a metaphysical interpretation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, one of Grimm's fairy tales. It is amazing how this picture, a fairy story, swept sophisticated New York and the whole country due to Walt Disney's genius. This fairy tale was supposed to be for children, but men and women have packed the theater. It is because fairy tales come down from old legends of Persia, India, and Egypt, which are founded on truth. Now, this was something that I didn't know. We got the Arabian Nights and different tales and Humpty Dumpty. A lot of those rhymes were talking about the royalty of England or France. That's how they got information out of the castle. But this one, fairy tales came down from old legends of Persia, India, and Egypt, and it's founded on truth, and I like that. Snow White, the little princess, has a cruel stepmother who is jealous of her. The cruel stepmother idea also appears in Cinderella. Nearly everyone has a cruel stepmother. And she does the following in all caps. The cruel stepmother is a negative thought form you have built up in the subconscious. Oh, I like that. The cruel stepmother, evil, mean, nasty, just terrible, doing bad things to Snow White and Cinderella, right? So it's the negative thought form you have built up in your subconscious. And I've talked about this before, of recognizing when you have a negative thought, recognizing when you are in negativity. So this is built up in the subconscious. Snow White's cruel stepmother is jealous of her and always keeps her in rags and in the background. All cruel thought forms do this. And you think about it when you are in a state of negativity, where you are. You're always, if I coulda, if I would've, I can't, I can't do that, they won't let me. Oh, who does she think she is? Oh, she must think she's cute. Or he thinks he's Mr. It. Jealousy. Cruel stepmother is jealous of her and always keeps her in rags and in the background. The cruel stepmother consults her magic mirror every day, saying, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" One day, the mirror replies, "Thou queen, mayest fair and beauteous be, but Snow White is lovelier far than thee." This enrages the queen. So she decides to send Snow White to the forest to be killed by one of her servants. However, the servant's heart melts when Snow White begs for her life, so he leaves her in the woods. The woods are filled with terrifying animals and many pitfalls and dangers. She falls in terror to the ground, and while there, a most unusual spectacle presents itself. Scores of the most delightful little animals and birds creep up and surround her. Rabbits, squirrels, deer, beavers, raccoon, and so on. She opens her eyes and greets them with pleasure. They are so friendly and attractive. She tells her story. They lead her to a little house which she makes her home. Now, these friendly birds and animals symbolize, ready, our intuitive leads or hunches, which are always ready to get you out of the woods. The little house proves to be the home of the 7 dwarfs. Everything is in disorder. So Snow White and her animal friends begin to clean the house. The squirrels dust with their tails, the birds hang things up using the little deer's horns for a hat rack. When the 7 dwarfs come home from their work of digging gold, they discover the change and at last find Snow White asleep on one of the beds. In the morning she tells her story, remains with them to keep house and cook their meals, and is very happy. So in caps she says, the 7 dwarfs symbolize the protective forces all about us. In the meantime, the cruel stepmother consults her mirror, and it says to her, "Over the hills in the greenwood shade, where the 7 dwarfs their dwelling have made, there Snow White is hiding her head, and she is lovelier far, O queen, than thee." This infuriates the queen. So she starts off disguised as an old hag with a poisoned apple for Snow White. She finds her in the house of the 7 dwarfs and tempts her with the big, red, luscious apple. Yeah, guys, you got to be careful of those carrots, those big, shiny objects, those things that glow and tempt you, right? The birds and animals endeavor to tell her not to touch it. They try to give her the hunch not to eat. Okay, so the protective forces around her are the 7 dwarfs, but they're not there. But the friendly birds and animals are our intuition, our hunches. And have you ever had a hunch? Have you ever had this feeling? I just have that feeling I should do this, or I shouldn't do this, or this just doesn't seem right. So the birds and animals endeavor to tell her not to touch it. They rush around in dismay, but Snow White can't resist the big shiny apple. She takes one bite and falls, apparently dead. Now all the little birds and animals rush off to bring the 7 dwarfs to the rescue, but too late. Snow White lies lifeless. They all bow their heads in grief. Then suddenly the prince appears, kisses Snow White, and she comes to life. They are married and live happily ever after. The queen, the cruel stepmother, is swept away by a terrific storm. Okay, so the stepmother is all those negative thoughts that you have and you carry around. The birds and the animals are your intuition, and you have them around you all the time. But many of us do not tap into our intuition. It's too good to be true. And And so it's good to start tapping into your knowledge, to start tapping into that intuition, to notice when you are in a negative state, or bring people around you who are positive and give them permission to pull you out of negativity. Anytime you speak negative, I want you to encourage them to say, change that. I mean, I have friends myself, and I'll say things in such a way, and they say, how about this way? And I go, oh, thank you. Because, yes, even I wind up being in a negative state. Or I'm saying it in a negative way. Or I'm saying it in the future instead of in the present. So the queen is swept away by a terrific storm, she says. So, this is a fairy tale. But just think of this. The old thought form is dissolved. That old thought form is washed away, dissipated forever. At least I wish it was that way. According to the fairy tale it is, but you get those negative thoughts sometimes. I can't do that. Oh, my boss, whatever it is. We never get that report out on time. Oh, I don't know. It's going to stress me out, and I don't know if I can get it done. Versus, let's do the best we can. We're going to go for it. Let's set a timetable, and let's get this done. A whole different thing. And the feeling inside of you totally changes. It is different. It is totally different when you say, let's set a timetable. No, we're going to be stretched for time, and we might have to be short on sleep, but we can get this done. Versus, it never gets done. I feel the energy change when I change from the I can't do it to I can. I don't know how I can, but I can. And when you do that, you allow your intuition and the seven dwarfs, as in the protective forces all around you, to come in and help you very much. Now, who's the prince in this story? She goes on to say, the prince symbolizes the divine plan of your life. When it wakes you up, you live happily ever after. When you figure out what makes you happy, you figure out or think and go forward with what you have determined to be your purpose. You have worked into your life the divine plan of your life. Now, you may have a purpose today, but next month that purpose may change. Something new may come into your life, a new person, a new training, a new something. Or somebody might come back into your life, or something. Some opportunity may show up in your life, and that purpose shifts. Some people think my life purpose and it's like throughout your entire life. No, it's not. Some people, yeah. But other people, they have a season of when they do things. So I like to tell the story. Yes, I worked 29 years for one big company and then 12 for another. Well, during those, 29, 39, 41 years, I had other things. I was raised in a family. I was married. But I also was an interior decorator and helped people redecorate their homes. I even rearranged a person's kitchen for them. And I enjoyed that for a time. I had a flea market stand, both in Pennsylvania and here in Texas, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I was a quilter. I quilted people's quilts, and that's another business. Soap making, hand painting on silk and selling them, and just many things. I had lots of purposes. And what about you? You may have lots of you may have one thing that's steady throughout your life. You wanted to be a teacher and you're a teacher forever, but I've met people who have become lawyers and they weren't satisfied with being a lawyer, and then they went off and went to medical school and became a doctor. I've met doctors who said, "No, this isn't for me," and they left the medical profession and went into something else. You see, what you think is a total life purpose may be a piece of your life. Or, as with the person who became an attorney and then a doctor, and that their purpose was service. So even though there's specific things, but when you look in the big picture, we're living a life of service. And that's what you're looking at. So the prince symbolizes the divine plan of your life. When it wakes you up, you live happily ever after. She goes on and she says, this is the fairy story which has enthralled New York and the whole country. Find out what form of tyranny your cruel stepmother is taking in your subconscious. It is some negative fiction which works out in all of your affairs. So there may be one thing that's carried on as a theme. I'm not good enough. People are always out to get me. Whatever it is. Those are just some examples. We hear people saying, my good always comes to me too late. I've lost so many opportunities. We must reverse the thought and say repeatedly, I am wide awake to my good. So the prince has kissed you. Or if you're a guy, the princess has kissed you. And you are wide awake to your divine plan. So I am wide awake to my good. I never miss a trick. She goes on, she said, we must drown out the dreary suggestions of the cruel stepmother. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom from these negative thoughts. You've got to be on the ball. You've got to look for when that cruel stepmother is about to zing you. You've got to be on the lookout, and you can have your friends help you. Those that are positive. You can't have the negative friends. You've got to help those negative friends as much as you can come out of that negativity. So be vigilant. Working to keep that cruel stepmother out of your subconscious. Bring in your animals, your birds, and what else? Beavers and deer and all of these intuitive forces in your life, and be aware that you have the 7 dwarfs, the protective forces all around you, and just be awakened to your purpose, to your prince or your princess. Nothing can hinder, nothing can delay the manifestation of the divine plan of your life. You, and you alone, can recognize who you are, what you are, and recognize your stepmother. Be open to your forest animals and your 7 dwarfs, and ultimately your prince or princess. I hope you enjoyed this reading from Florence Scovel Shinn, and I hope you learned from that, and that through that analogy you're able to sit down, write out the stepmother, write out who your animals are, write out the 7 dwarfs for you and find out who your prince is. You can do this through meditation, through just sitting quietly, maybe with a little music on or in silence, and just recognize those things. When you find yourself upset, ask yourself, why are you upset? What is this cruel stepmother that's causing you to be upset? Please understand, it's not somebody else's fault. You choose to be upset. And why is it? What was your expectation? Please share this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the bell. And for those of you who are already subscribed, thank you so much. And each and every one of you, I just request that you share this. Share this on your timelines, share this in your social media, so others can hear and understand how they can truly take control of their life.